You can listen to The Front on your smart speaker every morning. To hear the latest episode, just say, play the news from The Australian.
From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Wednesday, September 25. More pain for mortgage holders after the Reserve Bank held interest rates at 4.35% on Tuesday. It's the seventh straight RBA meeting where the cash rate has remained unchanged.
The board needs to be confident that inflation is moving sustainably towards the target before any decisions are made about a reduction in interest rates.
Do women's rights activists belong in the Liberal Party? That's one of the issues being thrashed out in the federal court in a big defamation battle between the Victorian opposition leader and an MP kicked out of the party. Today, superstar barristers Sue Chrysanthou and Matt Collins lock horns.
Your values do not dictate the beliefs and tenets of the Liberal Party merely because you are a current leader.
That's a voice actor reading the words spoken in court by defamation lawyer Sue Chrysanthou SC on Tuesday. Chrysanthou was grilling Victoria's opposition leader, John Pizzuto.
And frankly, your personal values as leader are irrelevant to the underlying beliefs and values of the Liberal Party. It's not your party merely because, as at March 2023, you'd been a leader for a few months. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. It's not my party.
Pizzuto is being sued for defamation by ousted Victorian MP Moira Deeming. She was booted from the party after organising and speaking at a wild March 2023 rally by self-styled women's rights activists. The rally drew crowds of pro-trans protesters and a group of men in black making Nazi salutes.
Thank you to each and every one of you that felt brave enough to come here.
And it's not your values, particularly as you'd only been leader for a few months as at March 2023, that were relevant in making decisions in the party room.
Of course they were. Let's be realistic here, Your Honour. I'm the leader. I was elected because of what I stand for, and I was elected because of what I can bring to the role.
You were elected by one vote.
So what? I'm the elected leader, Your Honour.
Would you like to answer my question rather than give speeches?
Mrs. Deeming could and should have worked out that she was walking into a disaster.
That's a voice actor reading the words of Matt Collins KC, counsel for John Pizzuto. And those angry men were the neo-Nazis who showed up at the rally Deeming organised and performed Adolf Hitler's one-armed salute. In his opening address, delivered on Tuesday just before John Pizzuto entered the witness box, Collins said Moira Deeming had breached her obligation to demonstrate to Victorians that the Liberal Party was united, inclusive and deserving of being elected. Collins said when Deeming heard that British activist Kelly J. Keane Minshull, also known as Posy Parker, was coming to Australia on a speaking tour, she contacted her asking how she could help.
She paid for security guards for the rally, organised and paid for the sound equipment. She fundraised for the rally, she promoted the rally, she booked the steps of Parliament House for the rally, and she arranged to escort Ms. Keane to the steps.
The issue, Collins said, was that Kelly J. Keane Minshull had made it clear in the weeks before this rally that she believed trans people were associated with pedophiles. Collins cited an article in the Courier Mail, quoting Keane at a Brisbane rally 5 days before the Melbourne rally. Here's what that article said.
Ms. Keane told the crowd that she doesn't think trans is a thing and described it as a dirty fetish and cult.
The article went on to quote a local LGBTI organisation claiming Keane was linked to the Proud Boys, a far-right American movement, Holocaust deniers and white supremacists.
A member of a mainstream political party which aspires to government, a member of that party has no business in organising rallies to the extent that Mrs. Deeming did without having done basic research, which would have uncovered just how toxic these associations would prove to be. Mr. Pizzuto wants to be elected to government. Anyone who had conducted a Google search on Mrs. Keen's name would have found precisely this sort of information about her, and that was inimical to Mr. Pesutto's project, the Parliamentary Liberal Party's project, of forming the next government of our state.
I think there was an agenda to destroy the nuclear family, to destroy particularly women.
This is Kelly J. Keane-Minshall, also known as Posy Parker, in an interview published on YouTube shortly before her Melbourne rally.
Paraphilias, like transsexualism, transgenderism, they're often accompanied by another paraphilia. It's very uncommon for a man just have one.
Yeah.
So that's another link with, and the most common is paedophilia. Paedophiles will gain easier access to children because of the transgender route.
The Macquarie Dictionary definition of paraphilia is a preference for or addiction to an unusual sexual practice. Transsexualism and transgenderism are not unusual sexual practices. They're a form of gender identity.
Deeming earlier told Collins in the witness box she'd never heard Keane say those things. Deeming said she hadn't heard Keane say that pedophiles would get easier access to children because of the trans agenda.
What one has in the public statements by Mrs. Keane is an easy elision between trans people and pedophilia.
Collins said Kelly J. Keane-Minshall's online presence was also full of invocations of the Nazis.
She would have found photos of Mrs. Keane smiling with an alleged Holocaust denier. She would have found a profile picture used by Mrs. Keane of a Barbie doll in a Nazi uniform. And she would have seen a tweet from Mrs. Keane equating the tactics of those who argue LGBTI rights, that is, the Pride movement, with the tactics of the Gestapo during World War II. I will seek to persuade Your Honour that Mrs. Keane is plainly anti-trans. Anyone who says that transsexualism or transgenderism is connected to pedophilia is spouting hateful speech. And there are many statements of that kind by her. When someone describes trans as a dirty fetish and a cult, that's hateful.
Coming up, the Nazis in tight little shorts. At The Australian, we've got live coverage of all the big court cases, and our subscribers will be the first to know who wins this battle for the soul of Victoria's Liberal Party. Join us at theaustralian.com.au. This idea that people who advocate for the rights of trans people are advocating for pedophilia, that's what self-styled Nazi Thomas Sewell declared on the steps of Parliament too.
It is our belief that revolution is coming. It is our belief that these communists, pedophiles and trannies have infiltrated every single institution of this country across the West. They're not just coming for your children, they're coming for everyone's.
If you didn't catch that, Sewell, who's wearing a tight black t-shirt and tiny little black shorts, says these communists, pedophiles and trannies have infiltrated every single institution. They're going for everyone's children.
Mr. Sewell, the neo-Nazis, were claiming that the reason they had gone to Parliament House was to protect Mrs. Keen's protest. They were there as a vanguard for that protest.
At the rally, pro-trans activists being held across the street by police on horseback were linking the Nazis with Kelly J. Keane-Minshall.
Mrs. Deeming knew that the Melbourne rally had the potential to become violent. She was aware of personal and group threats being made, and she took steps to arrange extra security on behalf of Let Women Speak. She said that the fact that there were threats made her, quote, more determined to be brave and go. And she said that she did not tell Mr. Pesutto or anyone else in the leadership team of the threats that have been received and of which she was aware.
This is not a case about whether the Liberals were right to bounce Deeming. It's a defamation claim brought by Deeming against Pizzuto. She says he defamed her by falsely suggesting she was a Nazi sympathiser. Pizzuto is relying on defences of contextual truth and honest opinion about a matter of public interest. He says Deeming is not a fit and proper person to be in the Liberal Party.
In Mr Pizzuto's view, she brought the Parliamentary Liberal Party into disrepute to such an extent that the leadership team thought they were compelled to act against her. Politics is a rough game. Politics is a brutal game. This is a fight to hold the government of our state. In order to hold the government of our state in a system with compulsory voting, one has to attract the mainstream. One has to attract a majority of the electors. That means associations of this kind are absolutely toxic. They drive people from the centre a mile away from thinking that your party is fit to govern. That's why he acted.
The trial continues. Follow it live by joining our subscribers at theaustralian.com.au.